All right, let's talk about questions to ask yourself after you've had a week of stock trading behind you. Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. About 5 days ago, I dropped a video for you where I talked about the idea of questions you should be asking yourself before you make certain investments. So every week, the prior week, toward the end of that week, as I'm going into the next week, I am planning for any trades that I am considering making. And I mentioned in the video, part of that planning is asking myself a lot of key questions like what events or announcements are going to come up that could impact my trades. And those questions can really help you. You should be asking yourself lots of questions like that before you make investments in individual stocks or mutual funds and all these kinds of things. You should be strategically planning those trades, watching for announcements and things that could cause an uptick or downtick in the stock you're thinking about buying. Well, you should also be asking yourself key questions after a week's worth of trading, and sometimes, in some instances, even after a day's worth of trading. So some of the questions that I like to ask myself are the individual stocks already performing the way I thought? Now, sometimes stocks don't move that much, but we have had a fair amount of volatility. So I'm always watching the stocks that I bought and seeing if they're moving in the direction that I thought. A perfect example is I bought in at the very beginning of the IPO for Snowflake, SNOW. Again, as always, I'm not recommending them make your own investment decisions, but the minute that IPO hit the market, I bought into it right at the strike price. It was originally going to be listed, started out $70, $80 a share. Then they announced $120 a share. By the time of the IPO itself, it actually ended up coming straight out into the market at $245 per share. Now, I don't know how it's doing today. I'm trying over here on the side to bring up my app to see how the stock's performing. Maybe I'll do it through Robinhood. But, I always ask myself, is that stock performing the way I anticipated it was going to? And particularly with an IPO, that's tough because the day of the IPO and even the week of the IPO, it's very, very volatile. As a matter of fact, Snowflake opened at 245, shot up to 310, and I think by the end of that day of the IPO, it was like at 230 or something like that. So it's been pretty volatile. Let's see, it's sitting at latest price at 258. So I'm in the positive, which is great. I bought in at that initial 245. So it ping ponged all over the place. But, I'm always asking myself, when I make a trade, is the stock doing, let's say within the first week of me owning it, maybe in for sure the first month, is it doing what I thought it would do? So I bought into Apple a long time ago. And, I, in my head, thought that there was room in the market for that to have a nice uptick. And if you look at how it was performing over time, I don't know if you can see this, but the light's kind of shining on it. You can't really see it that great, but right there, you're having this squiggly up. It's moving up. So sorry, you couldn't see that very well. But the stock started to climb bit by bit by bit, and then it did its stock split. And so I'm anticipating that it will continue to do that. Again, it's been volatile. It's kind of been up, down, up, down, up, down. But I think over time, Apple's going to have some good announcements, continue to be a strong company. It's not going anywhere. It was the first company to hit 2 trillion in market cap. I think it's going to continue to climb. So questions like that, I ask myself, is the stock performing the way I think it's going to perform? I also ask myself a similar question that I ask before I make that trade. So before I make that trade, I'm asking what announcements or events could cause that stock to move. What announcements or events could cause the U.S. economy to move? I ask similar questions after I've made the trade. So with Snowflake, goodness gracious, what a video. Sorry, guys. With Snowflake, Freudian slip. With Snowflake, some of the questions I'm asking myself are, do we anticipate it continuing to have that upward trend? I mean, it's a company right now whose revenues don't really match the market valuation. And can we expect it to grow at the kind of clip that I would want it to? And the answer is right now, probably not. Now, in the future, they may have some good quarterly announcements that'll push it up bit by bit. But I think a lot of the movement in the stock and the temporary upward mobility of the stock is probably just going to be in the hype around the company. because folks like Warren Buffett and others bought into it. So I'm asking myself, did the stock perform the way I think it's going to? Are there future announcements and events that could impact my stock? So Tesla, I've owned it for a while. They had their battery day event. And, I was asking myself ahead of time, now that I already own it and made that trade, is that the type of announcement that I think would move the stock? And it did move it. It actually moved it down a little bit because of some of the things Elon Musk said, like it'll be a while before we recognize these benefits in producing better batteries. So prior to making trades in stock investing, you need to be doing some analysis and asking yourself key questions. What are the assumptions I'm making when I'm buying the stock? And then after you buy it, you don't just set it and forget it and let it go. You need to ask yourself key questions. Is the stock moving in the way I want it to? Do I expect it to continue that trend? Is there an announcement coming in the future that I think would impact that trend? Is the movement sustainable? So if it's a stock that is impacted heavily by how the US economy is doing, do I expect an announcement coming out maybe with this upcoming election that's going to force that stock price down? So investing in stock, the key I'm trying to get across in both these types of videos is that investing in stock is not just sort of a willy-nilly thing, and it's also not something that you should just do and forget about the stocks that you bought. I'm not implying you check them all the time, but you need to be asking yourself, continuing to do analysis, asking yourself, what do I expect could happen that would move the stock in a favorable way, and what could happen that would move it in a downward trend? And if that happens, at what point do I want to get out? Which is a great question to ask yourself once you have made a trade, right? So have an exit in mind. If I know in my head, if Apple now hits a certain valuation, I'm probably going to dump it and reap my gains, right? If Tesla hits a certain valuation, I'm going to sell it and reap my gains. And definitely this Snowflake IPO that I bought into, if it reaches a certain valuation, I'm probably going to get rid of it. And maybe not all of it, might keep some of it, but get rid of some of it and recoup my investment and get some of my gains out of it. So these are all the things you need to be thinking about when you're making certain stock trades. As always, do your own analysis, not necessarily take my recommendations for stocks I've bought, but put your comments below. I'd love to see what you do when you're analyzing post stock trades, right? So after the fact, what are the things you're looking at when you're thinking about, the shares that you bought in a particular company and how it might move? Until next time, hope that helps. Hope you find your voice. Have a good day.